Welcome you all to my channel, brother. And as I promised on my last video, I'm here with the second part of AZ900 Microsoft's Azure Fundamentals Certification Dump. This certification will help you to gain knowledge on Microsoft Cloud concepts, core Azure services, Azure pricing, SLAs, and lifecycle and fundamentals of cloud security, privacy, compliance, and trust. So let me take you through the Microsoft Azure Fundamentals AZ900 sample questions and answer without wasting any more time. I hope you all find it useful. Let's get started. So there have been some recent changes on Microsoft Azure Fundamental certifications. As always, Microsoft has been practiced this. These are the topics that will be covered in the certification. So study materials, understanding cloud concept will have 15 to 20% of weight in the exam. Understanding core Azure services will have 30 to 35% of weight in the exam. So understanding security, privacy, compliance, and trust will have 25 to 30% of the weight. So understanding Azure pricing, service level agreement, and life cycle will have 25 to 30% of the weightage in the exam. So we need to study accordingly. So that is the study material. I'll share the link below in the description box. You can always check that. And before I start, I just want you all to know that you can always pause the video and read the questions if I'm too fast or too slow. Yeah, so let's get started. So the first question will be, your company has an on-premises network that contains multiple services. The company plans to reduce the following administrative responsibilities of network administrators: backing up application data, replacing failed server hardware, maintaining physical server security, updating server operating systems, managing permissions to share documents. The company plans to migrate several servers to Azure virtual machines now. You need to identify which administrative responsibilities will be eliminated after the planned migration. Which two responsibilities should you identify? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. So the answer would be replacing failed server hardware A, and C, managing physical server security. Another one, a team of developers at your company plans to deploy and then remove 50 virtual machines each week. All the virtual machines are configured by using Azure Resource Manager templates. You need to recommend which Azure service will minimize the administrative effort required to deploy and remove the virtual machines. What should you recommend? So the answer would be B, Azure Dev Test Lab. So this is one another format of which we'll get the questions like this. So for each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. Note, each correct selections is worth 1 point. So let's go to the statements. A company can extend a private cloud by adding its own physical servers to the public cloud. No. To build a hybrid cloud, you must deploy resources to the public cloud. Yes. A private cloud must be disconnected from the internet. No. Okay, so here comes the another question. This question is a part of a series of questions that presents the same scenario. Each question in this series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solutions, while others might not have a correct solutions. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. So the question is, you plan to deploy several Azure virtual machines. You need to ensure that the services running on the virtual machines are available if a single data center fails. So the solution, you deploy the virtual machines to a scale set. Does this meet the goal? No, definitely this will not meet the goal. So the answer would be B, no. Again, here it's the same type of a question. So let me read out directly the statements. A platform as a service solutions that host web apps in Azure provides full control of operating systems that host applications. So this will again be no. A platform as a services PaaS solutions that host web apps in Azure can be provided with additional memory by changing the pricing tier. Obviously, yes, this will be correct. So platform as a services PaaS solutions that host web apps in Azure can be configured to automatically scale the number of instances based on demand. So the answer would be yes. Okay, now here your company plans to deploy several custom applications to Azure. The applications will provide invoicing services to the customers of each company. Each application will have several prerequisite applications and service installed. You need to recommend a cloud deployment solution for all the applications. What should you recommend? What will you recommend? So you will recommend infrastructure as a services. C will be the answer for this. So let me read out the statement directly. An Azure resources can have multiple delete locks. Yes. An Azure resources inherits lock from its resource groups. Yes. If an Azure resources has a read-only lock, you can add a delete lock to the resources. Yes. There's another question. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. Azure Cosmos DB is an example of a platform as a services PaaS offering. So instructions: review the underlying text. If it makes statement correct, select no changes is needed. If the statement is incorrect, select the answer choice that makes the statement correct. So obviously this is correct. So we'll select A, no changes is needed. Same type of question. So let's read out directly the question. An Azure region contains one or more data centers that are connected by using a low latency network. Obviously, this is correct. So we'll select A, no changes is needed. Again, it's the same type of question. So let me read out the question directly. You plan to deploy 20 virtual machines to an Azure environment. To ensure that a virtual machine named VM1 cannot connect to the other virtual machines, VM1 must be deployed to separate virtual network. Correct. This is correct. So no changes is needed. So it will be A. When you need to delegate permissions to several Azure virtual machines simultaneously, you must deploy the Azure virtual machines to the same Azure region. So no, this is not correct. So it should be deployed to the same resource groups. So the answer would be C. A team of developers at your company plans to deploy and then remove 50 customized virtual machines. Each week, 30 of the virtual machines run Windows Server 2016 and 20 of the virtual machines run Ubuntu Linux. You need to recommend which Azure service will minimize an administrative effort required to deploy and remove the virtual machines. So what should you recommend? You should recommend Azure Dev Test Labs for this. So the answer would be C. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it is correct. One of the benefits of Azure SQL data warehouse is the high availability is built into the platform. Yes, this is correct. So the answer would be A, no changes needed. A support engineer plans to perform several Azure management tasks by using the Azure CLI. You install the CLI on a computer. You need to tell the support engineer which tools to use to run CLI. Which two tools should you instruct the support engineer to use? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. So what we need to suggest is A, command prompt, and C, Windows PowerShell. These are the correct answers. So you need to manage Azure by using Azure Cloud Shell. Which Azure portal icon should you select to answer? Select the appropriate icon in the answer area. So this is the dashboard how it looks, and for the Azure Cloud Shell, we need to select this one. So it's highlighted here. So select this one. This is the correct answer. You have an Azure environment that contains 10 web apps. To which URL should you connect to manage all the Azure resources? To answer, select the appropriate options in the following area. So note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To access the portal, you will select is portal.azure.com. So there will be a drop down like this. So you need to select portal dot, and on the second drop down you will select azure.com. You need to identify the type of failure for which an Azure availability zone can be used to protect access to Azure service. What should you identify? You should identify an Azure data center failure. So the answer would be D. You plan to extend your company's network to Azure. The network contains a VPN application appliance that use an IP address of 131.107.200.1. You need to create an Azure resource that identifies the VPN appliance in Azure. Which Azure resource should you create? To answer, select the appropriate resources in the answer area. So here there are a lot of options. You need to go through it, and the correct one will be local network gateway. So this will be the correct one. You need to select this one. You have a virtual machine named VM1 that runs Windows Server 2016. VM1 is an East US Azure region. Which Azure service should you use from the Azure portal to view service failure notifications that can affect the availability of VM1? So the answer would be Azure Virtual Machine C. Okay. This question is a part of a series of questions that presents the same scenarios. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solutions, while others might not have correct solutions. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the reviews screen. So make sure you read it carefully and select it at one time. An Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that creates Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. Solution: you run the script from a computer that runs Linux and has the Azure CLI tools installed. Does this meet the goal? No, definitely this will not meet the goal. So the answer would be B, no. Again, is from the same series. The question is, an Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that creates Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. Solutions: run the script from a computer that runs Mac OS and has PowerShell Core 6.0 installed. Does this meet the goal? Yes, definitely this will meet the goal. So the answer would be A, yes. You have an Azure environment that contains 10 virtual machines, 10 virtual networks and 100 virtual machines. You need to limit the amount on inbound traffic to all the Azure virtual networks. What should you create? So you will create Azure Firewall. So the answer would be D, one Azure Firewall. You have an Azure environment that contains multiple Azure virtual machines. You plan to implement a solution that enables the client computers on your on-premises network to communicate to the Azure virtual machines. You need to recommend which Azure resource must be created for the planned solution. Which two Azure resources should you include in the recommendation? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. So note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. So the correct answer would be A, virtual network gateway, and E, a gateway subnet. You need to identify which blades in the Azure portal must be used to perform the following task: view security recommendation, monitor the health of Azure services, browse available virtual machines images. So which blade should you identify for each task? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. So there will be a drop down like this again in front of the statements. Monitor the health of Azure services. So let's select monitor. That would be a correct answer. Drop down, select monitor. Uh, Browse available virtual machine images, marketplace. View security recommendation, advisor. So again, this is a series of questions. So let's go to the questions directly. You have an Azure environment. You need to create a new Azure virtual machine from a tab, uh, tablet that runs the Android operating system. Solution: you use Bash in Azure Cloud Shell. Does this meet the goal? Yes, definitely this will meet the goal. The answer would be A. You plan to map a network drive from several computers that run Windows 10 to Azure storage. You need to create a storage solution in Azure for planned map drive. What should you create? So you will create a file service in a storage account. So the answer would be C. In here, you plan to implement an Azure database solution. You need to implement a database solution that meets the following requirements. Can add the data currently from multiple regions. Okay, so here we need to select. This is the this is the part of the question how it will look, and we need to select from this which is the option that we need to select is Azure Cosmos DB. This one. Your company plans to migrate all its network resources to Azure. You need to start the planning process by exploring Azure. What should you create first? You will create a subscription first, right? So A would be the answer. Your company has several business units. Each business unit requires 20 different Azure resources for daily operation. All the business units requires the same type of Azure resources. You need to recommend a solution to automate the creation of the Azure resources. What should you include in the recommendation? So what you'll recommend is Azure Resource Manager templates. So this would be the answer A. This question requires that you evaluate the underlying text to determine if it's correct. Azure Databricks is an Apache Spark based analytics services instruction. Review the underlying text. If it makes the statement correct, select no changes is needed. If the statement is incorrect, select the answer choice that makes the statement correct. So these are the options, and the correct answer would be no changes is needed, A, because it's correct. Okay, so here we come to the end of the question sets. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and I wish you luck for your upcoming AZ900 certification. Go for it, smash it, and please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I will see you all soon on my next video that will be about SC900 Microsoft Security Compliance Identity Certification dumps. So comment below if you want anything more to know. So I'll make a video of those, and keep supporting, keep learning. Signing off, Narendra. Peace.